Hello, and greetings to all you fans of RPGs and of Dungeons & Dragons. This is RPGmodsFan, and in this video, I will be reviewing and discussing the Dungeons & Dragons module B2, the Keep On The Borderlands, which was written by the legendary Gary Gygax. It was first published by TSR in 1980. Gary Gygax wrote most of his D&D modules between the years of 1977 to 1979, including this one. However, managing TSR was taking up more and more of his time. So, he hired Gene Wells and Lawrence Schick to form TSR's design department in 1979. Going forward, this department would be the main source of TSR's D&D modules. This module was meant for beginning-level player characters between the levels of 1 to 3. This module introduced me to the Dungeons & Dragons game when I was a teenager back in high school. My class went on a day-long field trip, and the bus ride was quite long. Two classmates in the seats in front of me broke out the basic D&D box set and started playing it. This served as a demonstration for me on how to play the D&D game, and I was hooked ever since. The next day, I went and bought the basic D&D box set, which is also known as the Blue Box. Unfortunately, the box set that I bought was missing this module. Heck, my box set was also missing the polyhedral dice that was supposed to come with it. So, the first dungeon I made was completely homebrewed. My players and I used playing cards in place of the polyhedral dice. Obviously, the B2 module was written for the basic D&D rules. Due to its low-level encounters, the Dungeon Master should not have too much trouble converting it to 5th edition rules. In 2018, Goodman Games released Into the Borderlands, which combines modules B1 and B2 together for 5th edition D&D rules. The B2 module was meant to be generic and very basic. It assumes the Dungeon Master and the player characters are playing Dungeons & Dragons for the first time. A lot of material is written on how the DM should run the game. It has sections on how to be an effective Dungeon Master, how the DM should keep track of time, how to compute and award experience points to the player characters, as well as tips for players. My biggest criticism of the earlier editions of D&D is the way experience points are awarded. The experience points awarded is based only on the monsters killed and the treasure carried off. To me, this method of awarding experience points is lacking and improper. Because if there were no other alternatives to gaining experience points, your player characters will degenerate into murdering hobos. To alleviate this, as a DM, I would also award experience points for completing quests, finding and disarming traps, solving puzzles, and diplomatically avoiding fights. Minor spoiler warning. Some of the monsters in this module will have non-combatants in their lairs. If the player characters were to kill these non-combatants for experience points, I, as a DM, would have negative consequences for them, such as giving them a negative reputation, which causes merchants to outright refuse their business or sell at a 20% or more markup, and shifting the player characters' alignments to outright evil. The B2 module is presented as a generic and neutral setting that can be used in almost any D&D campaign setting. So placing the adventure on the borders of most any country in your campaign world would be appropriate. This is just my opinion. To me, it makes more sense to place the adventure on a continent instead of on an island. I will now paraphrase the module's plot hook and background. The forces of chaos are constantly pressing upon the borders of mankind. If it were not for a stout few, many in the realm would fall prey to the goblin kind which surrounds them. Yet, there are always certain exceptional and brave members of humanity who rise above the common level and join battle to stave off the darkness. These bold adventurers from the realm set off for the Borderlands, where the terrain is mountainous and forested, along with marshy fens, and journey to the Keep on the Borderlands to seek their fortune. Ahead, up a winding road atop of a sheer-walled mount of stone, looms the Great Keep. The adventurers reach the main gate of the keep and are allowed entry. Here, the adventurers can use the keep as a base of operations. They can equip and prepare themselves for forays against the goblin kind who lurk in the wilds. So, player characters, what is your next move? Warning: I will now be discussing the module itself, and this video will contain spoilers. Because the B2 module is so popular, especially with grognards such as myself, I feel that this spoiler warning is redundant and unnecessary. The module is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is the keep itself. Part 2 is the wilderness area that surrounds it. And Part 3 is the Caves of Chaos. As mentioned earlier, the keep was meant to serve as a base of operations for the player characters. At their disposal, the stronghold has a tavern, an inn, a jewel merchant, a general store, another shop, a blacksmith, stables, and a chapel. In general, none of the keep's inhabitants, soldiers, and officers are described, nor are they given any names. Heck, not even the keep itself is given a name. It is up to the Dungeon Master to develop details, give personalities, and names to the NPCs in the keep. Well, there is one exception. Visiting the keep are a jovial priest and his 2 acolytes. They are currently residing at apartment 7B. Within the Caves of Chaos is the Temple of Evil Chaos. The jovial priest and his acolytes are actually spies for the High Priest of the Temple of Evil Chaos. The jovial priest will be willing to join any party to the Caves of Chaos. However, at the most opportune time in terms of monster encounter, he will betray the party and fight with the monsters. With the exception of the guild house, the module does not provide maps for any of the keep's interior buildings. If the Dungeon Master wants maps of the interior buildings of the keep, I would suggest going to the Mage of the Striped Towers blog. There, you will find maps of most all the buildings in the keep. Displayed on the screen is just a few of them. When venturing off outside the keep, the player characters may stumble into the Mound of the Lizardmen. Here, a group of lizardmen will aggressively defend their home. Inside their cave lair will be their mates, their children, and their eggs. Within a forested area, the adventurers may encounter 2 giant black widow spiders in this area. Seeking to be hidden and out of the law's reach of the keep is a raider's camp. Haunting a portion of a forest high above the keep is a mad hermit living in a hollowed-out oak tree, and his pet mountain lion. Finally, we have reached the apex, the acme, the height, the crown, the zenith, the ne plus ultra, la crème de la crème of the B2 module, the infamous Caves of Chaos, where many unorganized, non-cautious, and non-observant player characters have met their end. As an option, the module does state that the goblin-kind creatures do take prisoners either to ransom them off or to sell them off as slaves. So, the Dungeon Master can have these creatures dealing non-lethal damage to the player characters instead. As an overarching campaign idea, the DM could have the denizens of the Caves of Chaos working with or for the Slave Lords of Sunderham from the D&D A-Series modules. Assuming the player characters approach the ravine where the Caves of Chaos is located during daylight, I would provide them with the following map as a handout. In the B3 module, Palace of the Silver Princess, the player characters may encounter two highly charismatic, leather-clad female rogues named Candela and Duchess. Although they are kleptomaniacs, they are not outright malicious. They are more like the character of Amanda in the Highlander TV series from the 90s. As a DM, I like the idea of reoccurring characters and NPCs. Just like Amanda in the Highlander TV series, I like the idea of having Candela and Duchess occasionally getting into trouble and help is needed from the player characters to get them out of it. This drawing by the artist Domenico Neziti, also known as Nezart, is an example of such a scene, where Candela and Duchess are hiding up in a tree at the bottom of the Caves of Chaos ravine, with a band of goblin-kind marching beneath them. I wonder if the artist had the B2 module in mind when drawing his artwork. I certainly did when seeing it. Okay, it is time to meet the neighbors. Starting with the kobolds. The kobolds make their lair in this portion of the map. The cave entrance to their lair is marked with a yellow circle. There are two tribes of orcs living in this portion of the map. The two cave entrances to their lairs is marked with yellow circles. On the opposite side of where the kobolds and orcs lair are the goblins, and their bigger cousins, the hobgoblins. Also within the hobgoblin lair is a torture chamber with 6 prisoners. The hobgoblins are more interested in cooking the prisoners for dinner instead of ransoming them off. Next to the orcs are the bugbears. The bugbears have 2 slave pens holding slaves of various races. Next up are the gnolls, who make their lair in the area marked on the map. Also habiting the Caves of Chaos are more solitary monsters, such as an ogre, who the goblins will call for help if need be, an owlbear, a wight, a gelatinous cube, a Medusa, who is a prisoner and is chained to the wall, and a Minotaur. The marked area on the map is the Temple of Evil Chaos. There are many clerics in this area of various levels. In addition, there are many skeletons and zombies in this area. None of the clerics are given names, details, or personalities. This is the area where the Dungeon Master has the opportunity to link this module with another module. To link it with the aforementioned A series, you can have one of the slave lords that is a cleric visiting this temple. To link it with the T series, let this area be a temple of elemental evil instead of the temple of evil chaos. The most common complaint about this module is, how the heck are all these creatures able to live so close to each other without tearing each other apart? I would suggest having a powerful villain, such as a high-level mage or cleric, introduced into this adventure. This villain has brought these warring goblin-kind creatures together to do his bidding. For now, there is an uneasy alliance between these creatures. This person can be used as a reoccurring villain, and can serve as an ongoing enemy throughout the player character's campaign, thus providing plot hooks for future quests and adventures for the player characters. In a prior video, as I stated, you can place the setting of the B1 module in Search of the Unknown near the Cave of the Unknown. Thus, you can run both the B1 and B2 modules simultaneously. In the Caves of Chaos, there is a rubble-filled passage that leads to the Cave of the Unknown. However, Gary Gygax provided no details or information on the Cave of the Unknown and left it as a blank slate for the Dungeon Masters. While preparing for this review, on the internet I found an interesting homebrewed dungeon adventure by Druvas for the Cave of the Unknown. On the upper right corner of the map is a rubble-filled passage that leads back to the Caves of Chaos. Since I like this dungeon, perhaps I should do a review of this in a future video. The B2 Keep On The Borderlands module is considered completed when the player characters have defeated the denizens of the temple area. The drawings, maps, and art of the module were done by David S. LaForce, Errol Otus, Jim Rosloff, and an uncredited piece by Bill Willingham. Most of the module's art have already been displayed within this review. For the art and drawings that I have not yet displayed, I will do so towards the end of this video. Roll credits. Displayed are the credits found within the B2 module itself. In June of 1999, TSR published Return to the Keep on the Borderlands. It was authored by John D. Ratliff. This adventure takes place 20 years after the events of the B2 module. During this adventure, the Caves of Chaos have been repopulated by goblin-kind creatures. Also, it renames the Cave of the Unknown as Quaz-Kuton. Basically, it is placing the B1 module in Search of the Unknown setting there. Return to the Keep on the Borderlands is an adventure for AD&D 2nd edition rules. The B2 module received better than good ratings on both Amazon's and Drive-Thru RPG's websites, averaging a 4.3 out of 5 stars between the both of them. There were lots of customer comments. I will read only 2 of them. This one reads as follows. As is often the case with these old modules, you will find a lot more content herein than its page count would lead you to believe. This is one of the very first module I ever played, and therefore my rating might be biased. But I think that no matter the rule set you are using, this is a good example of an adventure adapted to beginner GMs. The first part of the module provides guidelines on how to run the adventure and how to add your own material. The second part presents the Keep, the place where the characters can resupply and gather information, as well as hire help to explore the Caves of Chaos. The third part is a description of the Caves of Chaos and its inhabitants. The adventure is pretty much straightforward and does not necessarily contain surprises, but it is a solid classic in which new players can learn how to play the game and veterans reminisce some of their first experiences. The second one reads as follows. This was the first complete module that I played in 1981. It was then, and remains today, a great beginning module. You can easily modify the adventure for 1 to 6 players. The Caves of Chaos are a focal point of the adventure. The caves house a variety of basic monsters. Cave of Kobolds, Cave of Orcs, Minotaur Maze, Temple of Evil, etc. While it is extremely unrealistic, even in a fantasy realm, for all these creatures to exist so close to one another, each cave complex allows for short forays. If you only have very low-level players or a short amount of time, you can complete short segments. It is easily possible to play up the role of the evil priests in the keep, the warring between the factions in the cave complex, and the role of the ogre for hire. The strength of this module is its simplicity. There is no real storyline. The DM has the ability to make a story and is freed from the tedium of creating warrens filled with monsters. Thank you for watching. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. I love many types of role-playing games, especially Dungeons & Dragons. Inclusive in my wayward love are computer role-playing games, such as Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, the first 2 Dragon Age games, Baldur's Gate, and others. I have also created a playlist of classic D&D modules composed of videos from various YouTube channels. In the foreseeable future, I plan on continuing to review D&D modules. Till next time, this is RPGmodsFan saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.
Look into my eyes and show me your adventures I haven't seen. Taking all the life, it hits the spot. Walking on fantasy. So take me, baby, take me to a state of mind that's made of, baby, that's made of all that we find. Test the waters, oh, it's hard. I think we're getting close. Racing through the waves, I want to be where nobody